drawing. You know, spending all them years in shoe, that's all I did is draw. But now that I have a couple birds, it's kind of like it's hard to get into the drawing, you know?
You got a bird?
Oh yeah, I got two. I got those. You ever seen those little brown? They're called house sparrows. Yeah. I have two of those. You know, and I'm pretty sure somebody sent you a video of that little house sparrow. You should post it. You know, the bird part. You know.
Yeah, it'll be in this video. It'll be in this video. If you guys can see it right there, it'll be down there right there.
Yeah. I had one up in Pelican Bay for like 3 years, and that bird used to go out underneath my door every day. It would come in and out. It would go outside. It would go into other sections, and it would come in and eat and bird bath and take a nap. Every night at like 5 o'clock, it would come in for bed. Oh yeah, man, that thing was those birds. Once they imprint on you, they are loyal. You know.
What would you say would be the happiest day of your life since you've been in there?
Man, ever since I got my birds, those are the happiest days right there. Those help me get by, you know, because it's something to wake up to every day, to take care of, to feed, to clean up after, you know, like that's what keeps me going right there, you know.
What would you say would be the saddest day of your life?
Yeah, the saddest day is when my mom passes away. That's gonna break my heart right there. You know, I don't like to think about it, but I know it's gonna happen, you know. Speaking of that real quick, remember Jacob Marchesano?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, his mom passed away a couple months ago, and his dad passed away last week. And so, you know, tell everybody to send their prayers to him, because he's over in crisis bed right now, because the doctor wanted to make sure that he was okay, that he wasn't a threat to himself or others. And so they put him over there on crisis bed, you know, so just let everybody know to kind of like keep him in their thoughts, you know. Oh, that's man. Brutal right there. You lose your mom and dad within a couple months, you know. Oh yeah, because you know, when he's in the crisis bed, they strip you out naked and they make you wear this little smock, you know, so you can't hang yourself and you can't. It's like, oh, it's brutal. No TV, no property. Yeah, that's terrible right there. That'll make a guy go crazy, you know.
So rather than help him, you strip him of his friends, you strip him of his goods, the little goods that he has, his TV, his music, his radio, and whatnot. Yeah, man, that's absurd.
Exactly, man. They don't think of it that way, and it's sad because it's true that when he gets back, he is going to be one angry individual because of how they did him, you know. So yeah, let me give you a little backstory regarding this case. All right, I had paroled from Pelican Bay in 1995, and I was in LA County Jail within a month. I was busted for auto burglary. And back in 1995, LA County Jail had a thing called OSJ, Operation Safe Jail. So anybody that comes in that they view as a gang member, has tattoos, they'll slam them down and they'll put them with their own kind. So like the white boys had their own gang module, we had our own row, the Mexicans had their own row, the blacks, the Crips, the Bloods, the Asians. So it's a white gang module, and that's where they put me. And so one of my cellies was a friend of mine who ended up turning out to be two co-defendants in this case when I had killed this guy Hampton. They call him No Brains, right? And so one of my co-defendants, his name is Crash. His name is Jason Smouse, and he's actually here now. He's over on the other yard. So this guy, I'm in the gang module for the auto burglary, this guy Crash, he's in the game module because he was in a high-speed pursuit running from the police. They finally caught up to him in like a dirt area, and his truck got stuck. He had put the truck in reverse and tried to go backwards, and then he tried to put the truck into gear and go forward. And when he put the truck into gear to go forward, the truck lunged a little bit, and the cop opened fire on him, shot him like 9 times, right? They shot him 9 times. And when the cops started shooting, the first thing Jason did was roll over on the front seat, kind of like he ducked. He's in the driver's seat, and he rolled right to lay down on his side to protect himself. Well, the cop is shooting at the driver's side door, and one of the bullets actually goes through the door, and it goes up his, like actually went up into his 1 in a million shot. So he's shot 9 times. He goes to the hospital. After he gets out of the hospital, the guards put him in a cell with 3 other black guys. And Jason has a bunch of tattoos. He's got like some white prison gang tattoos, like a swastika. And so the blacks, they put the boot to him. Like, they beat him down so bad that he had to be put back in the hospital. And after he got out of the hospital the second time, they put him up in the game module with us. All right. And so he was my cellie for a minute. He ended up moving out, going down the tier. One of my other cellies was Danny Black. All right. This guy was busted for, I don't remember what he was busted for, but so he was my cellie. And so when all this came to be regarding this inmate, No Brains, when I had decided to kill him, I had put a plan in motion that I was going to go down there, play cards. While we were playing cards, I was going to get him to lose. Like, me and Danny are putting our heads together during this time to plan this whole thing. And so what we needed was, we needed a patsy. Like, we needed somebody to get at this guy, No Brains, and ask him if he wanted to play cards with us. And so one thing about the game module is when you actually behave, the cops will give you a cell check. They'll open up all the doors. They'll let you go into any cell you want, and they'll shut all the doors, and they'll give you a couple hours to kick it with your homeboys, to play cards, dominoes, whatever. And so that was the plan. And so the patsy was Crash, Jason Schmaus. We sent him a kite, and we told him, hey, look, get at your next door neighbor, No Brains, and ask him if he wants to play pinochle with us at the next cell check. And Jason said okay, and he did it. And so that was the plan, to go in there and play cards. Once he gets down to do push-ups, I'll go ahead and kill him. And that is what ended up happening. We all went into the cell. We started playing cards. We lost a couple hands, and I had to get down and do push-ups. Finally, they lost. Jason got down to do push-ups. After he was done, he hopped up on the top bunk. No Brains got down to do his push-ups, and that's when I came up from behind him and I placed my hand on his back, and I was kind of putting some pressure on his back, telling him, come on, old boy, that's right, get that, like, you can do it. And as he was coming back up, I put my left arm around his throat, and I pulled him towards the front of the bars, and I started choking him out. After he got kind of weak, I grabbed him by his hair, and I kind of threw him in the middle of the cell. By this time, I had already had a razor shank in my pocket. It was a couple razors melted into a piece of plastic. And Danny was next door during all this. He had the actual shank. So when I threw No Brains to the middle of the floor, I walked over to him, I grabbed him by the back of his hair, and I pulled his head back, and I slit his throat a couple times. I threw the razor shank down, I grabbed the knife from Mikey, who had got it from Danny, and then I started stabbing the guy. And so I'm the only one that stabbed him. Like, I stabbed this guy so many times, and it was wrongly reported in the autopsy report. They had said, hey, we're gonna get cut off right now. I'm gonna go ahead and get back on the kiosk. So yeah, so later on, there was a little kind of like bragging rights. It's kind of mean to say this, it's kind of sad, but we were trying to beat a record, right? The whites, the Mexicans had stabbed this guy like 47 times and he lived. So my thing was to beat that record and then set a record. And so as I'm stabbing this guy, later on, a few years later when I'm going to court, I got the discovery and I got all the evidence. And the autopsy report says that he was stabbed over 100 times, but that's not true. I know how many times I stabbed him. But what happened was that shank was so big that it was going in his back, it was coming out of his stomach, and it was hitting his hands. Because I actually thought he had a weapon, because when he was laying on the floor, he started grabbing towards his groin area. So white boys, that's normally where they keep their weapon. So I thought he had a weapon. That's where his hands were. So like I said, as I'm stabbing him, it's going in his back, it's coming out his stomach, and it's hitting him in his hands. And also the homicide detectives would say in their report that those were defensive wounds, but they weren't. They were just, it's just something that happened. Yeah. All right, so later on when we had got the autopsy report, they had said he was stabbed over 100 times. So they had counted each one of those stab wounds as each one of those punctures, they counted it as a stab wound. All right, so we get away with this whole thing, all right? You got to remember, I'm in the cell with Mikey Beatty and with Crash. After I'm done with this guy, I tell them to help me. They have no choice in the matter because they just seen what I did and they don't want to be next. So they're like, yeah, sure, whatever you need. So I told them, look, help me pick this guy up and put him on the bunk. And so they did. I kind of grabbed him by his head. Mikey grabbed him by his waistband, I think, and we kind of lifted him up and put him on the bunk and threw a towel over him. And then I stripped naked and I started taking a bird bath, right, in the sink, washing off all the blood. Danny Black, who was in the cell next door, you got to remember, this is LA County Jail, too. This is old LA County, so they got the prison bars. They got the actual bars, like how they do, like old school, So Danny had passed over a fresh set of clothes, a pair of boxers, a pair of pants, a shirt. So after I got done taking a bird bath, I got dressed. We looked over everybody, made sure that there was no blood on anybody. The officers announced that the cell check was over, and they opened up all the cells, and we went back to our cell. And they said, get ready for pill call. And so after everybody's locked down in their housing, the nurse comes on a tier to administer medication, and also that officer to do count. And when they got down there to No Brains' cell, the officer was using his club to bang on the bars to try and wake him up in case he was sleeping. And finally, after he didn't respond, he reached down and grabbed the sheet that I had thrown over the body and pulled it. And once he pulled it off, that nurse took off running, like she was gone, running down the tier to get away from that, So all the cops come, they pull everybody out, they take us all in the hallway, they do a quick run through of our hands, seeing if anybody had any injuries consistent with what just happened, and then they put us all in the hole. So also, like, I had the keys to that gang module at the time, and so one of my rules was that no white boy was allowed to have a weapon. So my cell 5, was in charge of holding all the weapons. So every time we got a weapon, a shank, a boot shank or something like that, we would wrap it in toilet paper and wet it and then throw it and stick it to the ceiling. All right. So after this murder happened, they took everybody to the hole. They got rid of the body. They searched the whole tier, right? And about 3 weeks later, they put us all back on the rope. They put us all back in our exact same cells. And when I got into my cell, I looked up on the ceiling and there's 2 shanks still stuck to the ceiling. So it's obvious because you could see that the rust was kind of eating through one of them, you know, but I knew that they knew that they were there, you know, but they kind of, that's how the cops were at that time. They liked it when white boys did stuff like that, you know, killing a chomo or killing, you know. So everybody catches the chain and goes to prison. I went to court and I got sentenced to 32 months for auto burglary, and I caught the chain and I was gone. I ended up going back up to Pelican Bay, and I ended up paroling in 1998. I paroled twice off of this old murder. And as soon as I got out, I was gone. I went out to Utah because I knew that it was just a matter of time before this murder had caught up with me. Jason Schmaus, he ended up taking a deal in his case because he was being charged with attempted murder on a cop because they're saying that he used his truck as a weapon, and plus he was suing them for them shooting him 9 times. So they offered him a deal. They said, look, just go ahead and drop your lawsuit and we'll go ahead and give you I forget how much time, like 13 years or something. And so he did. He went to prison. Danny Black took a deal for his time and he went to prison. So now fast forward to 1998. I had parole the second time, right? I got busted out in Utah. They extradited me back to California. While I'm sitting in Chino, Palm Hall, LA County comes, picks me up. They say, Glenn, pack your stuff, you're going. So I knew automatically what it was. I'm going to LA County for that old murder. So I said, fuck. So I go to the county jail. I see everybody. I see Danny. I see Jason Schmaus. I see Mikey. We get all our discovery. You know, we find out all the evidence that they have against us. And I'm in the hat. I got in trouble with the Aryan Brotherhood up in Pelican Bay in 1997, 1998. So they're actively trying to kill me, right? There was a AB brother that was in 1750 high power at the time named Butch. He had tried to get this black guy to stab me. One day I was walking back to my cell after a shower and I felt a little breeze on my neck. That guy tried to cut my throat, you know, and I ended up slicing him later on, maybe about a week later. But, you know, all this started changing my whole mindset. Like, you know, also too, it's kind of important to understand that when I got back up to Pelican Bay in 1996, they had just killed my homeboy, Rufo. So it starts to make you realize that you're not invincible. I thought I was, you know, a youngster. I thought like nobody could kill me. But once I seen that they killed my homeboy, who I looked up to, I idolized, it made me, that was a really good reality check, you know. But so like I said, I'm in the hat. They're trying to kill me. I get Danny Black, who was NLR at the time. he was trying to become Area Brotherhood. So he was trying to slide in with the big homie Butch, and he was using me. He was going to go ahead and toss me to the wolves, right? So I had got a copy of his witness list. I found out who he was bringing down to court for trial. He was bringing down Steve Oliveras, my old cellie, and another brother, right? So once I seen that, I knew that he had no loyalty to me anymore. His loyalty was to the gang. And that's absolutely the wrong thing right there. When you commit a murder with somebody, like, you guys are like bonded for life, you know? Like, that supersedes all that other gang stuff. But he tried to sell me out. And so I decided to, at this time, they're trying to kill me. I had just sliced that black guy from the top of his shoulder all the way down his arm and out his elbow. So that's another case that they can get me for, attempted murder. The DA offered us all deals, right? We're getting ready to go to trial. So the DA said, Bobby and Jason, if you guys go ahead and plead guilty, we'll give you guys 22 years with no life. Mikey, because you have a relatively non-existent criminal record, we'll give you 16 years for your participation in this case. But Danny Black, because you have been caught with 2 weapons while you were down in 1750 high power, you got caught with drugs, they offered him 28 years. All right? So after, and also what the DA said, that if you take your deal, in order for you to take your deal, you had to give what is called a factual guilty plea. And it's common in all multiple co-defendant cases, right? So what this means is, if I'm going to take my deal, I got to get up on the stand and I got to tell them everything that happened. But this can only be used if later on I try to come back as a witness for one of my co-defendants and I try to say that I did everything, that they did nothing. So doing a factual guilty plea is a way to kind of protect them when they're going to do the other trials. Hey, so when we got back to LA County, we're down there in the holding tank and we're talking about these deals. And Danny Black, who had the keys at the time, he says, no, ain't nobody taking no deal, because the factual guilty plea is like telling. So therefore, nobody is going to be allowed to take the deal. So I told him, man, you're crazy. I don't care. I'm taking my deal and I'm gone. And I hope you guys do the same. And I told Jason this, like, take the deal. We're not going to win in trial, you know? Hey, we're going to get cut off right now. I'm going to go ahead and try to do another one on the other kiosk, all right?
Okay.
They are actively trying to kill me. Danny switched sides, switched loyalties. So I decided that the best thing for me was to take the deal and run, like I told him I was going to. So I got at my lawyer, and I told my lawyer that I was interested in accepting the offer that the DA had put on the table, and he scheduled a meeting with the district attorney. They came and pulled me out, and they put a paper recorder right there on the table, and they said, okay. The DA said, I'm going to go ahead and hear what you got to say. I'm not making you any promises. You know, there's nothing is set in stone right now. And like, man, I couldn't believe it. Like, I absolutely thought that my lawyer should have stuck up for me, or he should have said something. He should have got something in writing, you know? But he just let me talk. And so as I'm talking to the DA about what happened, I started to tell him that I killed No Brains, I stabbed him, and the DA turns the tape recorder off, right? And he says to me, look, if you're going to go ahead and tell me that you did everything and your co-defendants did nothing, then I'm going to go ahead and end this interview right now, and I'm just going to put you back in high power, 1750, and you can just go ahead and take your chances at trial. So, you know, the district attorney had this evidence already, because for the last 3 years, from 1995 until 1998, the homicide detectives have been going around all over California and interviewing white boys regarding this murder. Because in 1997, they validated the NLR as a prison gang, and so they locked up about 1,000 NLRs all across California. A lot of these guys, they knew about old cold cases, and so they started telling. They figured that they were going to use whatever they could use as a way to get out from under that indeterminate shoot term, right? So a lot of the versions that the district attorney already had was that I'm the one that killed Hampton. I'm the one that stabbed him to death. I'm the one that strangled him. So he already knew this, you know. So by him telling me, hey, if this is what you're going to try to tell me, I'm going to go ahead and end the interview right now and put you back where they're trying to kill you. So I kind of felt trapped. I kind of felt like I had no choice to incriminate my co-defendants, and I did. I kind of just told him what he wanted to hear, you know, that this is what I do.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know, I lied. I said that I handed the weapon to Jason and he stabbed the guy, and then he handed the weapon to Mikey and he stabbed the guy, and that's absolutely not true. You know, this has been weighing on my conscience all these years, because Jason Schmaus has been locked up now for about, he's been locked up now for 23, 28, he's been locked up right now for 28 years, 26 of those years for a crime that he didn't commit, you know. And so, let me go ahead and continue. So, I went ahead and incriminated my co-defendants, and at this time, I still was in contact with him. I was in contact with his mom, and I told him, look, homie, take the deal. We're not going to win. We're not going to win in trial. They got too much. Just take the deal, you know. But he was stubborn. He was still trying to remain loyal to the gang, and like I said, I'm in the hatch. I'm targeted for murder. I'm on the outs. Jason is just trying to save his own skin, so he kind of stayed with Danny Black and Mikey Beatty. You know, and they went to trial. They lost, and they all got sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. LWOP. Right? So, over the years now, like I said, this has been a huge thing weighing on my conscience. You know, Danny Black was locked up for about 26 years, and a few years ago, he was in Tehachapi. His wife left him. She was filing for divorce, and he lost it. He set his cell on fire. The cops extracted him, pulled him out of the cell, and put him in a hole. and then he hung himself. He committed like 3 years ago in Tehachapi State Prison. Jason, he's actually here in Mule Creek now. He's been through so much. Like, he was shot 9 times. He was convicted for a crime that he didn't commit. He is absolutely innocent. He was up in Pelican Bay, and he got into a fight, and the cops chicken winged him, right? What the cops did back then is they used this a hold, kind of a technique. It's like a pressure point type thing where they twist your arm behind your back, and it's supposed to get you to comply. But what they were doing is they were twisting your arm behind your back, and then they would like lift up, and by doing that, it would sever the muscle between your arm and your shoulder, and so it's called a chicken wing because your arm would be like a chicken wing stuck right there at an angle, and also it would kind of be dead. It would start losing weight, muscle tissue and stuff, so it'd be kind of skinny, you know. So they did that to him. Man, this kid, he's had a hard life, but like I said, you know, I've always believed that he's going to get out because I'm going to fix what I did, you know, by incriminating him. You know, he is going to be set free physically, and I'm going to be set free mentally by being able to, you know, finally tell the truth that he is innocent, you know.
And how long ago was it that this happened, Bobby?
The actual murder took place in 1995. We went to trial, and they pulled us all down from our respective California prisons in 1998, and we went to trial in 2000.
What were you going to say about Mikey?
Oh, he is, last I heard about him, he's in New Folsom, I believe. He's part of that mentor program, and he's supposed to be doing pretty good. He hasn't really gotten in any trouble. Like I said, when all those guys went to prison after this happened, Danny Black specifically, when the homicide detectives were doing interviews in 97 and 96 and 97, they had went to Calpatria to interview him where he was doing time. They pulled Danny Black out, a couple homicide detectives, Frank Durazo and Louis Danoff, and they pulled Danny out to the interview room, and they said, look, we know that you know.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Because you went to court that day and you were out there on the pier. Well, Danny Black is from Long Beach. So Danny says, oh no, you're not talking about me. You're talking about my homeboy Danger from Long Beach. He's over there on the other yard in Calpatria. So he says he's got nothing to say. They end the interview and they send Danny back to his cell. Well, the homicide detectives, they go talk to the gang squad. They find out who's Danger, right, from Long Beach. They tell them, yeah, he's over on this other yard in Calpatria. They go and pull him out, and they tell him, look, we know you were involved. We just talked to your homeboy Danny Black from Long Beach, and he told us you were involved. So if you don't tell us the truth right now, we're going to go ahead and charge you. So they scared him, and he gave up everything. He said, look, I had nothing to do with that. I know everything about that. I'll tell you. And so it was Danny's fault that this all started. He gave the homicide detectives the main witness, right? And also, later on that night, Danny Black had put in a request for interview. It's a form that CDC uses for inmates who want something or they need something. So Danny Black filled out this request for interview to the gang cops telling them, hey, do me a favor and call the homicide detective and find out what they're offering if I talk. Well, this request for interview is evidence. It was given to each of us in our discovery when we were going to trial. So when Danny Black got to Tehachapi, after he got found guilty at trial, he went out to yard and they stabbed him. They stabbed him because he tried to tell, you know. Writing that request for interview is the same as snitching. That's what they, you know, he tried to say, oh no, I never was going to tell. I was just trying to like fish for information and see what they had. No, but, you know, so yeah, he got stabbed. He ended up dropping out of the gang. Jason dropped out of the gang, the NORs. Mikey was never really in a gang, but he was still validated. Each one of them had to go through the debriefing program in order to disassociate themselves from the gang, you know.
Wow, man, that's a one cold, twisted turn of events, man.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
It is. It's crazy, you know. It's just like, man, I think about it now. You know what made me think about it? When I started seeing a lot of stuff on TV about these false confessions where these cops will hammer a youngster and he'll end up confessing to doing something that he never did, and it's true. You know, you don't really understand that until you're in that type of situation and you're just scared and you're willing to tell them whatever they want to hear just to like let you go, let you get some sleep, let you get something to eat, let you go home, you know.